It started on one of those evenings when it feels like the world has finally exhaled. Warm air, not too stuffy, not too chilly. I was riding in a cab home from a friend's birthday party. It was almost midnight. My ears were noisy, not from the alcohol, but from the amount of voices, conversations, music. I hadn't been drinking. Almost. One glass of wine so I wouldn't look completely gray. Usually on nights like this you feel drained, but I was at peace. Strange, even. The cab was old, with shabby upholstery. The driver was a man in his 50s, with a cap and a stare into nowhere. We didn't talk much. I just stared out the window, as if searching for something in the flashing lights and the silhouettes of passers-by that looked like shadows. My fingers twirled the phone habitually, but the screen was not pleasing. All the feeds were the same, all the memes had the same captions. And then I noticed her. A black flash drive. Small. Almost blending in with the tone of the seat, it lay between the folds of the fabric, as if hiding. I picked it up, looking at it. Dusty, unmarked. Just a rectangular piece of plastic with a connector. I tapped on the partition of the driver's compartment. "Isn't that yours?" I asked. He caught a glimpse through the rearview mirror. "What?" "Oh, a flash drive?" "No. Somebody must have left it. No one called or asked. You can have it if you want it. Or throw it away. Nobody's looking for these." I nodded. And put it in my jeans pocket. Just out of principle, I didn't know if it was photos or some student's term paper. No suspicion. Just the usual urban, "I'll look for the owner later." I didn't realize then that this little thing was like a poison capsule in a beautiful cover. I came home, put the kettle on, took off my sneakers. Mom was asleep. She always went to bed early. It had been just the two of us since Dad was gone. 2 years now. The living room lamp was on, the kitchen clock ticking quietly, as if checking to see if I was alive. I threw my jacket on the back of a chair and was just about to lie down when my hand fumbled for a flash drive in my pocket. I twirled it in my fingers. It was small. Unattractive. Almost forgotten. And suddenly I was curious. Normal, innocent curiosity. I turned on the laptop. A blue boot icon, then the standard connection sound. One folder opened. Title, Private. Of course. That's what they call everything. From tax forms to, well, anything. I clicked it. There were files inside. A few videos, a couple documents, photos. All without descriptions. img_02.jpg, video_03.mov, confession_2017. Everything looked boring. Until I opened the first video. I was expecting all kinds of crap. Dietary supplement commercials. Homemade porn. Lecture tapes. But not my father's face. He was sitting in front of the camera. Aged. The beard a little untidy, the wrinkles sharp. But it was him. My father. Dead 2 years ago. His eyes were tired. Not like the photo on the dresser of him smiling with a cup of coffee at a family reunion. They were real. So real that I think I forgot how to breathe. If you're watching this, that means someone opened the flash drive. And that means things didn't go according to plan, he said. I froze. I don't know who you are. Or why you're here. But if you're my son, Andrew, then I guess I have something to say. I'm sorry I couldn't in my lifetime. I turned off the video. It's impossible to describe how I felt. It wasn't like a dream. Not like a movie. It was, like someone had pulled back a corner of your life and revealed that beyond it was not a white wall, but an abyss. My father. My hero. Coach of the high school baseball team. A veteran. A husband who was respected by everyone. Talked about truth, honor. Strict, but fair. He taught me right from wrong. He held our family together. I grew up believing he was my north. And now, he sat in a video on a flash drive and spoke to me. After he died. Seriously. Deeply. Like he knew it would be revealed someday. I opened the next video. There he is, about 30 years ago. In uniform. In a motel bed. Next to him is a woman. Young. She looks about 25 years old. She's looking right into his eyes. "If you leave me, I won't keep quiet," she says. "I'll tell everything. I won't let you be a hero. Do you understand me?" He remained silent. Just stared. Calmly. Didn't argue. Didn't get angry. Just, watching. The video cut off abruptly. No ending. No explanation. I was sitting in the dark. On the floor. My laptop turned off next to me, a thumb drive in my lap. I didn't know how long I'd been sitting there. A minute? An hour? In the kitchen, the refrigerator clicked on. I opened the last video. Confession_2017. He's back in front of the camera. Older. Tired. I'm not apologizing. I know what I did. And I've lived with it. Because sometimes a man has to choose between the truth and what saves his family. He nodded. Turned off the camera. The screen went blank. I closed the laptop. My heart was pounding in my ears. My head was buzzing. I thought I could hear my own breath, and it felt foreign. Everything I knew about him, everything I'd thought was axiomatic, was now in question. And from that moment on, I knew. I hadn't just opened a flash drive. I had opened a door to a past I didn't know. And probably didn't want to know. I was up all night. But it wasn't the kind of insomnia where you toss and turn and try to shut your head off. This was different, when you can't get up off the floor. When the light on your laptop no longer illuminates the room, but illuminates the shadows in you. When the silence becomes louder than any scream. I went through all the files on the flash drive. First, the emails. One of them, "We both know what you did. Keep quiet and no one will get hurt." The handwriting's female. No signature, no date. Just this menacing simplicity. Then PDFs, old wire transfers. A few statements. The amounts are large. Regular. The recipient is some kind of E. Miller. Not mom. Not a familiar last name. Transfers went from 2003 to 2011. Then photos. Not porn. But not memories for the family album either. One shot is the father in front of a trailer. Next to him is the same girl from the video. Smiling. In another, he's with her and the baby. A baby. A boy about 5 years old. Handwritten signature on the back, "Billy. Our champion." My stomach clenched. Who is this kid? Why does my father have a picture of him? Why am I only seeing this now? And most importantly, why was he keeping all of this? The flash drive looked like a black box. But now it wasn't about someone else's disaster. It was about ours. I started to remember, 2010. I'm 14. Seems like a normal time. But that's when my dad suddenly left the military. Said it was because of a knee injury. We didn't discuss it. We just accepted it. He became a coach at school, became more at home, became different. Quieter. More tired. But we figured it was age. Or the effects of the war. And now? Now I was beginning to think it was an escape. That something had happened to make him leave. I decided to check the addresses that were on the papers. One was a town he'd supposedly been to 4 coaching camps. I punched it into the map. A small motel on the edge of Texas. The address no longer existed. The other one was a woman who received money orders. Search turned up an obituary. Died in 2016. No cause of death listed. No next of kin. Maybe it's a coincidence. Maybe this is all someone else's life that I'm mistakenly trying on my father. But then why is he in the video? Why is the word Thomas on one of the letters, his name written in the same handwriting as the greeting cards from my childhood? I stared into the monitor and felt my past cracking. It was as if the house you grew up in had turned out to be a cardboard set. And all this time you weren't living in a house, you were living in a studio. Under the spotlight. In a fantasy world. Mom woke up at 7 o'clock in the morning. I heard the kettle whirring in the kitchen. I pulled out the flash drive. Hid it under my t-shirts in a drawer. I got up. Walked out as if nothing had happened. "Good morning, honey," she said. "Did you sleep badly?" "A little," I answered. "Did something happen?" I looked at her. She was still smiling. The same soft, kind one. The woman who always made toast with butter and strawberry jam. The woman who called her father a pillar. The woman who told everyone how he saved her from being attacked on the street in 1989. How they met in the hospital. How everything was right with them right away. I couldn't tell her. I couldn't destroy her story. Couldn't tell her that the prop was holding up another house. "It's okay," I said. "Just overworked." I felt like I was lying. Not like when you lie to avoid offending someone. It was like saving a man from a fire you'd looked into. All day I walked around like a shadow. Teaching classes, grading papers, talking to students, but as if through glass. My mind was on a flash drive. With my father. His alien life. That evening, I got in the car. I drove. I didn't know where I was going. I just drove. I drove to the old stadium. Where he coached baseball. I got out, sat on the bench. Closed my eyes. I remembered how he taught me how to hit the ball. He said, "The power isn't in the hit, it's in the moment. You have to choose the moment." And now I realized that he always chose the moment. Just not for the game. It was for lying. I pulled out my phone. I opened the browser. I typed in the woman's name from the emails. Emma Miller. The search turned up almost nothing. One page was archived. From an old women's forum. 2008, post, "If a man leaves you with a child, he's still a father. Even if no one knows it." The comments under the post are closed. But the avatar, the girl from the video. The smile is the same. The eyes are still the same. I closed the tab. My heart was pounding. Back home, I turned on the flash drive again. The last file I hadn't opened then was called home_truth. It loaded with interference. The camera was shaking slightly. He was sitting in the background of some kitchen. Looking at the camera. If you're watching this, it means I couldn't take everything with me. I thought I could. But I guess I couldn't. He fell silent. For a second. I've been living a double life. Yes. There was. There was the boy. There was everything. But if you're my son, Andrew, know this, you're not a copy. You're a chance to make things right. Don't repeat me. Never hide behind duty, uniform, family. Just be honest. At least with yourself. I closed the laptop. And just sat there. I didn't know what to do with this. I didn't know what to do next. But now I knew for sure. My father was not the man I thought he was. I was up for the second night in a row. This time for real. With thoughts that wouldn't let me breathe. I lay on the bed, staring up at the ceiling as if there were going to be credits. Or some kind of ending. But only the video had an ending. For me, a new reality had begun. I wanted to tell my mother. I really did. I even rehearsed it. Mentally. Out loud. In front of the mirror. In the kitchen while she baked cinnamon buns like when I was a kid. But every time I'd freeze when I saw her smile. When I heard her humming the same tune she played as a child on the piano. Every gesture she made said, "The world is all right." And I couldn't be the one to say, "No Mom, the world was fictional." I tried to convince myself that it was none of my business. That the past is none of my business. That I'm an adult, a separate person. That my father could have been anything he wanted to be, but he hadn't stopped being my father. But there was another part of me that was fighting. The part that kept repeating. If you're silent, you're an accessory. On the third day, I opened the flash drive again. Not because I wanted to. But because I couldn't help but open it. Like a man who went back to the scene of an accident. To make sure it was real. I watched the video of my father again. I slowed it down. I measured the background. There's a clock in the background. There's a photo on the wall. And suddenly I realized this wasn't someone else's kitchen. This is the summer house where he went to write his memoirs. Where he supposedly retreated in the summer. A place I'd never been with him in the last 10 years. And suddenly it hit me, what if he still had something there? The next day, Friday, I took the day off. I told the office I was sick. I went. The dacha smelled of dust and pine. The silence was almost ominous. Like a museum. Everything was just as he had left it, a newspaper on the table, a mug of dried tea, an old jacket on a hanger. I went into the study. I opened the closet. Nothing. Then the bottom drawer. First, folders with papers. Then a box. Old. Scuffed. It says, 1994 to 2007. I opened it. There were letters. Handwritten. Some in children's handwriting. One was clearly from a child. Daddy, you promised you'd come. I've been waiting. Mommy said you were busy. But you promised. I closed my eyes. It wasn't me. It was someone else. My brother. A half-brother. Secret. Or simply forgotten. I drove home in total silence. No radio. No thoughts. Just a buzzing in my head. Everything that used to be my family's legend was beginning to crumble. My mother. The one who called him a hero. The one who kept his military uniform like an heirloom. Who said he was a man who would never betray. I was afraid to look her in the eye. But when I came back, she was already home. Cooking dinner. Potato casserole on the stove. Dad's favorite. 3 plates on the table. Is Daddy coming? I asked him. Yeah, in half an hour. He has a meeting with the veterans, you know. I sat down on the stool. Watched her chopping the greens. Still wearing her ring like it meant something. As if love was just a ritual. Mom, I said. Did you always know what he was doing? She froze. Why do you ask? It's just, did you ever doubt him? She put the knife down. She sat across from me. Eyes attentive. When you love someone all your life, you don't ask too many questions, she said. Or you're afraid of the answers. I looked at her. And suddenly I realized she knew. Or felt it. But she chose not to know. Like I do now. Did you ever want to check? She nodded. Quietly. Almost imperceptibly. A few times. But I always told myself that if I found out, the world would be ruined. And if I didn't find out, at least it would seem whole. I didn't talk about the flash drive. I couldn't. The next day, I found the girl in the video. Not directly. Through an old thread on Reddit. Someone had mentioned her name in connection with a scandal in 2011. Clarified, she filed a complaint against the officer. No evidence. Case was dropped. I found a photo of her. Cross-referenced it. It's her. One line in the news, sources said the victim was compensated and declined to comment further. Compensation. Just the amounts I saw on the flash drive. It's gone. Just like the whole story. And he's back home. To us. Like nothing had happened. That same night, I tried to tell my mom again. I went into the kitchen. I saw her scrubbing the sink. Same thing. The same old thing. And I didn't say anything. Because I suddenly realized. If I did, I'd kill her faith. I went to my room. I got the flash drive. I looked at it. It's small. Black. Like it was unremarkable. But inside it was another reality. I wanted to destroy it. Crush it. Burn it. But I put it back. Not because I wanted to keep it. But because I didn't know that without it, I'd feel even more alone. We agreed to meet on the waterfront. That was my condition, not at home, not in the kitchen with the sound of boiling tea and not in the garage, where the smell of oil and old memories could suffocate everything. There, on the waterfront, was space. A space between us and between words. A space where you could, if not speak honestly, at least breathe. I was early. 10 minutes. I walked back and forth on the wet tiles, watching the seagulls, the old couple sitting on the benches. Thought about what I would have said if I didn't know what I know now. If I didn't have that flash drive. If my dad was still just my dad, a hero, a tough nut, a pillar of support. He came right on time. He always did. Punctuality was almost a religion with him. In his army jacket, the one I remembered him wearing since I was as tall as his knee. It was frayed at the elbows and wrists, and smelled a little of cigarette smoke and rain. I hadn't seen it in years, thought I'd thrown it away. But he kept it. Like everything that's precious but not spoken aloud. "Hi," he said. "Hi." We walked in silence for a while. The wind lifted the water in the river, leaving tiny waves on the surface, as if everything that had built up in the water over the years finally wanted to come out. "Just like me. Are you okay?" he asked without looking. "Are you?" "I'm always okay, son." I didn't know where he was getting that "always" from. I hadn't been fine for a long time. And I suspected he wasn't either. But was still playing the game, I'm strong, so I'm above it. "Dad." I started, and my throat immediately felt dry. "Are there things you've done that you regret?" He didn't answer right away. He just stopped and stared off into the distance. Where the bridge merged into the horizon. "Of course," he said. "We've all lost something. But regret is a luxury. Not everyone can afford it. Especially if you've been in the army. Especially if you're a husband. And a father." I nodded, though I didn't quite understand. Or didn't want to. "Have you ever hidden something to protect us?" "Me? Mom?" He pressed his lips together. Walked over to the railing. Leaned on it, as if what he held inside was too heavy to carry standing up. "Every man does it," he said quietly. "Especially when he knows he can't explain without losing respect. Or trust. Even if the truth would ruin everything." He turned toward me. There was no fear in his eyes. Not a bit of it. Just tiredness. "Family isn't something you know. Family is what you choose to keep. So lying is acceptable." "No," he said. "But silence is not a lie. It's a choice." I stood there, unable to answer. Because everything he was saying sounded right, and wrong at the same time. Like code you can't crack because you didn't write it. "Dad," I breathed out, "what if someone found a flash drive? With your personal files. Videos, letters, evidence. And these things call into question everything you've said about yourself. About the past. About honor." He didn't even blink. I would ask this man to consider why he wants to watch. To know, or to judge. His voice was not accusatory. Not fearful. Calm. Almost fatherly. Almost prepared. What if he'd already looked? He looked away. He shrugged. Then you have to live with that knowledge. But remember, the past doesn't make love go away. It tests it. We were silent. The sound of the water grew louder. Or maybe it was just the buzzing in my head. "You've always been a hero to me," I said quietly. He grinned. Heroes were just people who hadn't been asked an uncomfortable question in time. Or who learned not to answer it. "I did ask it," I said. "Yes," he nodded. "And I'm glad. Because you have the right. Because you're an adult now." He patted me on the shoulder. Lightly, man to man. But that touch felt like a jolt in my chest. "Thank you for coming. I needed it." And I left. Just turned around and walked down the boardwalk without looking back. Like we were discussing the weather forecast. Or a new book. No. That. I just stood there. Not because I didn't know what to say. It was because I realized it had already been said. Just not out loud. Only in the intonation. The pauses. In the way he didn't defend himself. The way he didn't defend himself. Later that night, at home, I opened the notebook. An old, leather-bound notebook where I'd once written down lectures. The pages were crumpled and the ink was faded. I took the pen and wrote just one line. He didn't lie. But he didn't tell the truth either. And that's probably scarier. I closed the notebook. Sat by the window. I watched the clouds float slowly in the sky, as if nothing in the world had changed. But inside, everything was different. 2 days later, my mom put an apple pie on the table. I took a piece and she suddenly said, "Did you and your father talk about something serious? He's different. Silent, like he's carrying something inside him." I looked at her. I smiled. Quietly. Almost machine-like. "No, Mom. It's the same as always." And she believed it. Because she wanted to believe. But I knew. And he knew. That from that moment on, nothing was ever the same again. And probably never would be. I opened the desk drawer. Slowly, as if it contained a bomb, not an 8 GB plastic flash drive. It didn't glow. It made no sound. It didn't demand attention. But it was there, black, like a period at the end of a sentence you don't want to read aloud. I put it in the palm of my hand. Turned it a couple times. Small, light. But I felt its weight as if I were holding not a device, but my own childish naivete. Everything I believed in. It's been 3 weeks since we met on the boardwalk. We haven't talked about it again. It was as if my father had softened. More silent. Stared out the window more. But he didn't leave. Didn't confess. Just lived as if the flash drive didn't exist. Like our conversation was part of a dream. Mom didn't ask anything. She must have sensed it, though. She had long ago learned not to touch topics where shadows lived between words. At some point I realized, I hold more than just his secret. I hold my decision. To dig up, or to leave it in the ground. To destroy, or to let go. I inserted the flash drive into the laptop again. The screen flashed. The private folder appeared. I opened it, even though I already knew every file by heart. Videos, emails, bank documents. My father's voice in the recording a little younger, with a different tone. Not stern, not commanding, tired. "I know someone will see this one day," he says. "I'm not apologizing. I've just lived the best I could. Sometimes the right way. Sometimes to survive. I'm not proud. But I don't deny it either." He looks into the camera. Like he knows who's in front of the screen. Like he knew it would be me. I closed the file. Erase it? Copy it? Show it to my mother? None of the options seemed right. None of them saved me. I hid the flash drive in an envelope. Unsigned. No date. I put it in the bottom drawer of my desk. Locked it with the key. Put the key in a jar of coins. Hid the jar in the closet. It wasn't an act of forgiveness. It was an act of choosing not to tear what was still holding on. Not because it's perfect. But because it's still mine. That evening, my mom called me over for dinner. It was business as usual, napkins, her signature pasta, green salad, quietly playing jazz in the kitchen. Dad was cutting the meat, neat as always. Not a bit of extra movement. "Did you have a good day?" he asked. I nodded. "Yes, Dad. A good one." He smiled. Warm. No strain. And I sat there thinking, maybe he'd always been like this. Not a superhero. Not a trickster. Just a man. Who sometimes keeps silent not because he's hiding evil, but because he doesn't know how to explain weakness. I went out at night. Just like that. To breathe. The stars were dim. The moon was almost gone. I walked to the end of the street and sat on a bench. My mind went over and over the words he'd said. Family is not something you know. It's what you want to keep. I didn't know what to believe. But I knew, I want to keep. Not the lies. Not the secrets. But the possibility of being there for you. No matter what. 2 months passed. I taught as usual. The students drew stamps, I made bees, forgot to give homework. Life flowed. Not like a river, more like an underground stream. Without surges, but with a current. One day, going through some old boxes, I found a photo. Me, about 8 years old. Daddy's holding me on his shoulders. We're on a baseball field. He has a cap, I have a busted lip. I remember that day. I remember him saying, "You didn't fall down. You got up. And that's what counts." Back then, it was just a phrase. Now it's code. In early November, my mom had a family dinner. Cake, candles, my father even wore an old sweater she knitted 20 years ago. After dessert, Mom went to get tea, and Dad and I were left alone in the kitchen. He poured himself some water. He looked out the window. "You've chosen, haven't you?" he asked suddenly. I didn't realize it right away. "What?" He turned around. He wasn't smiling. But there was warmth in his eyes. "You could have ruined everything. But I didn't. I didn't say anything." He nodded, like it was our pact. A confirmation of something we hadn't said. Later, I found a box on my desk. Small, cardboard. Unsigned. Inside was an army knife. His knife. And a note. "Maybe one day you'll tell Ellie what her grandfather was like." I sat down on the chair. And I burst into tears. Not from pain. Not out of anger. From the fact that sometimes, acceptance means more than exposure. I open the drawer. The flash drive is there. I take it, but I don't turn it on. I just hold it. I haven't forgiven. I didn't understand. But I chose to live with it. Because the truth doesn't always set you free. Sometimes it sets you free. And sometimes it just reminds that even the strongest are not ironclad. And even the most beloved are not sinless. But if you're still around, means not all is lost.